Yo, everybody, welcome to another episode of ArmTalk. I'm your host, Jody Williams. And once again, a returning guest from the past, Mr. Ryan Johnston. Sir, how we doing?
Doing great, Jody. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. Now I want to know, because today's topic is going to be, because I saw the awards you have posted. There's a triple, like a triple crown event you got going on. And I saw the awards and I was like, those are pretty nice. Explain to everybody what you got going on and how does one try to get involved in that?
Yeah, so last year I did the BMF series, and it was very successful from, an interest in arm wrestling in the Kansas City area and just getting people to show up. We had 200 entries at every single event almost, outside of the World Series of Arm Wrestling qualifier, which is kind of, because of the weight classes and unfamiliarity, it's harder, but we still had like 130 entries to that one. So that's still pretty good compared to the last time we did one, which was like 60 or 40 entries, or just abysmal numbers. So the whole thing got a bunch of interest in Kansas City arm wrestling, which has already had good interest. And so I wanted to do something else this year. So one of our largest contributors has been Nebraska. Um, and they don't have a state tournament. So I was like, oh, what if I did a Nebraska State? And everybody up there was on board. It's like, well, what if I did a Kansas State? Kansas doesn't have a state tournament. Then I was like, well, what about a Missouri State for the western side of Missouri? Because Denise Waddles does a USA uh, state over in St. Louis every year, but the best pullers in Missouri are over on the western side, which is Kansas City area. So I'm like, well, what if, I give Denise a call, tell her what I'm doing, see if she's okay. And she's fine with it. She's like, yeah, that's fine. Just to make sure that they know that mine is separate. And I still consider hers like the main Missouri State. But that way I could do a triple crown, because I was explaining to her what I wanted to do, which is, 3 state tournaments. If you win first place at each state tournament, you're a triple crown winner, kind of like the old national triple crown, which whenever we used to have 3 separate triple crowns. One of the few people who won it was a guy named Don Frishy around here. And that's the only reason I even knew of it, because it was before my time even, whenever they were doing that. So I thought it would be a pretty cool thing to do with the Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska State. We had Kansas State back in early February, a couple weeks ago, February 1st. And it was 239 entries, great event, kind of like the BMF series. I'm doing an open class called the Triple Crown class, which is just one open class seated by weight. It's $20 to enter, double elimination, and it gets some pretty high and intense action because you get everybody pulling everybody.
Right.
So the whole idea is the Triple Crown's going on, where amateur, semi-pro, and pro classes can compete for the Triple Crown Award, which is a special medal that I'm having created. And they will, if you get first place, I might expand it to the top 2 or top 3 in the pro division, because Cole Casper, for example, showed up at this last event and just wrecked 2 classes for people, the 87s and the 98s.
Right.
And he's going to pull 76 at Fallen Heroes, so he's going to ruin another class for people. So somebody needs to show up and beat him, but
I gotta balance it out.
Yeah, no, and that I didn't get to pull. I was super sick that day. I wanted to pull Cole, and if I didn't have to run the damn tournament, I wouldn't have even been there. But I wanted to do something to where guys can still feel involved. So I also am doing, I'm doing 6 events next year, or this year, I guess. Kansas State's already done. Fallen Heroes in March. June 7th is Missouri State. August 9th is the World Series of Arm Wrestling qualifier. October, I don't have the date off the top of my head, but October is Nebraska State up in Lincoln or Omaha. We're still deciding on a venue. And then December is going to be the Triple Crown finals. So each event has a point system. So you get a certain amount of points for winning your class, first, second, or third. You get 1 or 2 points for winning your class. And then the open Triple Crown class also gives you additional points. So you can't pull multiple classes in the regular tournament and get additional points, but that Triple Crown class is kind of where the winner and the losers are determined for the Triple Crown points, same way with the BMF class last year. So the award this year is right and left-handed, a 1990s WCW World Championship belt. It's like the greatest world champion belt I've seen. So I decided
yes.
I'm getting
I'm
a
all about
full.
the belts. You know that.
Oh yeah, and this is a full replica, like from a very highly rated, like because there's a lot of wrestling fanatics out there. I got the BMF belt made last year, and it was thick metal. Austin Tevis won right and left-handed, gave one to Don Underwood because Don laid down to him a couple times throughout the life cycle of the event, and so they have those two belts, and they're replicas of the BMF belts. So I wanted to do something fancy this year, and then second and third place are also going to get like UAL. I actually saw they're handing out the smaller belts like I'm going to get for second and third place, and for the amateurs and for the women, and for the masters. So all those have their own Triple Crown winners. Women and masters are only first place, but amateurs, which encompasses amateur and semi-pro classes, they get first through third of those little belts. And then first place in the Triple Crown for the entire series, they get the big world championship belt, and second and third place will get the smaller belts. So it's an ongoing thing, gets a lot of guys involved. Doing it through third place, I think, will get just more interest. And it's just a way to try and grow the sport around here because, we have a pretty large group that shows up. And, like I said, we've been getting 200 plus entries at every event, which is, unthinkable 10 years ago.
That's good. Hey, I got a question. So you said in the Triple Crown, you can earn points, right? So
Yeah.
Who keeps track of those points?
Me. I do everything, Joe.
Because I was wondering, is there like a website or a page you can see who has
the
how many
Kansas
points?
City, the Kansas City arm wrestling page. If you don't follow that, it's where I'll post all of the information for the events. It's where I'll post updates on the points. It's all manually calculated on my end, so I'm lazy and busy. A couple kids trying to do all this stuff all the time, so I need to get them updated from the first event. But the like Fallen Heroes coming up will change the landscape of the point race because you got guys coming in from all over the country. You got Eli Brohard coming in. Sorry, Eli, if I just butchered your last name, I had to get with you on how to pronounce that. He's coming in to pull Bowles, and you got heavyweight Urbano Ponce and Bryce Talton going at it, who don't usually come. Wallace Dilly's going to be there like always. He's just dominating everyone at the BMF or the open class and the heavyweight class, and then you're going to have guys like Steven Martinez de la Catora, which, Steven, sorry, I'm working on your last name because it's about 500 letters long, and Eli said you like it to be, you don't like it to be shortened to Martinez. So working on getting those guys here, and they're all the Wisconsin and Illinois guys, and I think they're going to come down and pick things up. I got Steven Martinez Delacatora and his brother Brian both look like super strong pullers. Steven's pulling, and Steven and Chris Gellings. Chris Gellings is coming, and he's pulling Easton McCormick right-handed, and Steven. And these are guys that are around your weight, Jody. So if you don't know them, you need to know them. They're 220, 242 guys. And Steven's coming to pull Easton left-handed, and Easton won IFA Worlds in the under 21 class last year. I think he would have done some damage in the open class too. And he's, 20 years old, and he's always up for a challenge. I throw these guys at him, and, I reached out to a couple other guys, pretty big name pullers, and they're like, no, we don't want to pull those guys. And I reached out to
Is there a reason why they don't want to pull them? I'm just curious.
Because Chris Gellings, for example, beat Stephen Green a couple years ago, and I think everybody around here knows that. I think they're scared of him. Where I think Easton looked at that and saw the opportunity. Hey, I'm not going to miss out on this match. Same with Urbano. I reached out to a couple of well-known pullers about Urbano, and I think guys know who he is, but no, he's not well enough known for them to feel comfortable putting their name on a big card to pull him. So I reached out to Bryce Talton, who is a very good puller in his own right, and Bryce was like, yeah, I'm down. So I don't know Bryce as well as I wish I did because he's only about 4 hours from here and he doesn't make it up here that often. But I'm glad I could get him on the card because he is one of the strongest left-handed pullers in the Midwest for sure, if not the country. So,
right. Well, High Dollar Entertainment also said Bo versus Eli will be awesome. So, can you elaborate on how good that match is going to be?
I mean, Eli won Worlds in 2023. I think he got top 3 both hands this last year in Greece, and this year was super competitive. If you didn't pay attention to IFA, Bulgaria brought like 60 people, and the way that these countries work is they have their top 2 or 3 that go to WAF, obviously.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there's a huge drop off between the rest of the guys, and these are the guys who don't get to attend WAF, so they came in hungry, and Bulgaria came in, and I pulled a Bulgarian left-handed and I pulled a Bulgarian right-handed. I beat the Bulgarian right-handed. The guy I pulled left-handed was the guy who won the whole thing at 190 pounds, 86 kilos, and he pulled 210 last year, and he like beat him right-handed at least. And I couldn't, but my left, I'm not the greatest in the world, but airs, I'm top 10, top 4 right-handed, and I couldn't budge the guy. I couldn't even make him look like he struggled. So these Bulgarians, even though they're not WAF caliber, you got to think these are still guys that train with the WAF caliber guys, and the drop-off probably isn't incredibly immense. So Eli went out there and still got top 2. I think he lost to one of the Bulgarians that ended up winning. But Greece had a huge showing. I know India brought a large number of people. England, it was pretty awesome to experience that. It wasn't quite a WAF level event, but I think there was 400 plus pullers there, and it was pretty intense to see. So
Here,
Eli,
I can elaborate on that. The IFA stuff. I know we got a lot of people who tend to think, WAF is the best, which is fine. IFA is not, which is fine. But you gotta understand this. When it comes to WAF, when you're national, you can only take the top 2. Okay.
Yep.
Those top 2 go to WAF championships. That doesn't mean whoever took 3rd, 4th, and 5th are a bunch of chumps though either.
They probably walk through most tournaments here in the US.
Yeah, it's just brackets, elbow fouls, whatever, why they lost, but it's not like they're a bunch of chumps. So they're still legit. So
if these guys were chumps, Jody, they made me question my arm wrestling career. They were that strong even at IFA. So if these guys were their chumps, I'm wasting my time even trying to do this sport. So
well, I mean, that's the beauty of that. I was on the show the other night and I explained to him, like, you think you're doing something until you compete on an international level or until you compete against an international puller.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like going, wow. So I've told the story countless times. You go to Arm Wars and I'm pulling, Romanian Adrian Popescu, and I thought I was doing something training prior to that match, and then he shut everything down I want to do top roll wise. So I had to, go a different route. But what floored me is that the next morning everybody was still asleep. I got up, I'm hanging out. Do you know who Maynard Ninjas is?
I pulled him at the year that Wall lost the ESPN contract last minute. Me and him had like a 30, 45 second hook match there. So yes, I know him very well because he sticks out in my mind.
Yeah. I'm talking to him and, we're just kind of shooting the breeze. We're on the table messing around, drinking coffee, whatnot. Talking to him, just his words floored me. So, here in the States, we talk about how many guys you got on your team. And this dude was like, well, this is how many people we got in our club.
Yeah.
Just the way he worded that. And I'm thinking, wow, that kind of took me back for a second. So I'm listening. He goes, oh, yeah, in my club, we have about 7, 8 tables, give or take. And half of us train on the tables. The other half are on the weights. And after half midway point, they all swap. And when he said that, I was like going, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, I thought I was doing something here in the States, and that ain't nothing compared to what they do over there.
No, it's different. Talking to some of the guys from Hungary and from Bulgaria, the way that they approach it, if they podium, they get their entire trip paid for, expenses and everything.
Right.
by their club or their government. I don't remember what they said, but it's a different world. We can't compete in that regard because they can dedicate their lives to it because
Right.
it's government sanctioned, government sponsored. And the thing is, like, I'll give WAF its flowers. It is the end all be all. I think everybody
Mhm.
knows that. But to the average American polar, WAF is pointless. What are we going to do over there? You see Jeff Hale go over there and not get top 12. It's like, okay, Jeff is always a top 4 or 5 puller at his weight class, if not higher most of the time. And he
Right.
can't get in top 12 over there. Why would the average person, except for the experience, want to involve themselves with that? And you have to love the sport and have the money to do it. Until you get to the Masters level, it seems like U.S. has longevity over these countries, and we do better in the Masters level. Yeah, I mean, you see it every year. Yeah, and I think it's because we don't load up on so many steroids, we die before we get to 40. So
Exactly.
it's a longevity thing, or it might be a pride issue. Whenever they can't compete at the same level, they may just quit. So who knows? But that's kind of my way of looking at it: is sign up to go to WAF, experience it. But if you're not Cody Merritt, or you're not, I mean, Jeff Hale, everybody knows the Hellraiser, and he can't go over there and win a WAF. It's just not attainable for a lot of guys, and you need to realize that the international level is a different level. The heavyweight guys seem to be able to compete, but past that, unless you're Toddzilla or John Brzenk, which are the best of the best, it's a hard and nearly impossible level to attain, man. It's crazy.
Well, I think, once you, like you just said, when you said Toddzilla and John Brzenk, the best of the best, I think, once you become that elite level, then I think what will happen is that you're going to start getting calls from King of the Table and the East versus West instead of going to WAP. You know what I mean?
No, and that's the thing, that a lot of people look at that as an amateur event because they don't pay money, which is a silly way to look at it. I've never understood that. The highest competition levels in the U.S. are almost always going to be amateur if you look at it that way, because there's no money being given out. It's like, it's the competition that dictates the competition level. It's, if I've given out $1,000 and had 10 guys show up, and I've given out awards and had 20 guys show up. It's just like, it's not, you can't say, oh, this isn't a pro event because I'm not handing out $50 to the first place person.
Right. Well, I mean, it goes back to saying, how we always talked about, hey, when can we get our sport in the Olympics? I'm like, hell, man, WAF is going to be your closest thing that comes to the Olympics from that standpoint, because, you're going against all these different athletes from different countries, and it's like going, okay, and they're the best that they got to offer.
Yeah, and IFA, I'm glad I went. As the second Worlds I've been to with IFA, I went to the COVID year, which was, a glorified U.S. Nationals or North American Nationals. It was great, but going to Greece, they've just stepped it up since then too, production level and involvement. And just going to an international event like that, I've always wanted to. I still want to go to a WAF, assuming I can get unbanned, which it doesn't seem like it's too hard.
Yeah, there you have that. It's for a quick second,
let me put
because
it this way, Jody. I wasn't even good enough at IFA for them to ban me, so I probably could just walk into WAF if I could get top 2 in USAF Nationals again.
there you go. So explain something, because I was also there in Orlando, Florida, 2021 IFA Worlds, and yes, it was more like a national.
That's not taking anything away from anybody who medaled there. I don't mean that. I'm just saying because it was
right.
COVID. You were there.
Yeah,
other countries.
I knew what it was. Yeah, I'm happy about my second place, finish. But I understand what it was. But explain the difference between that year and then the one in Greece.
Production, it might have just been the country's availability, because the production quality was just greater, the tables, everything. So it might have just been the access. Maybe Greece had more resources, but they had video board backgrounds. They had your picture up in the background. You scanned it whenever you went up there, so they put it up and you scanned whenever you won. It's just kind of like what you see at WAF, they have finally gotten to with their production quality, it seemed like, just on a smaller scale.
Nice. So with all these organizations going on, what's your opinions about how things are being handled? Because I've always said, ever since the pandemic has come and gone, all these organizations are coming out, which is good because now we have an influx in pullers in our sport. And now it seems like every organization has something to cater to a lot of athletes. What's your thoughts on that?
Right now, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, in my opinion, for just events. My February event, for example, Kansas State, I scheduled it 1 week. Got a call from some people down in Springfield, which is about 3 hours south. Hey, we're doing an event this week. Okay, I'll be the guy to move it, even though I'm the guy who runs the events in this area.
Right.
And then I move it, and then I get a call from Pat Bear and Bill Onfrey, two best refs in the game and run Illinois State. They're like, hey, you're stepping on our toes with Illinois State. Can you move it? I'm like, yeah, I can move it. So I move it again. And then, I'm just like, man, there's just so much going on. And then I look at the date and I'm like, okay, there's 3 other events. One, down in Arkansas, which is the state below Missouri, the same exact date. I'm like, man, what is going on here? Why is there so many damn events? And there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. And then the league's the same way. I know there's some controversy going on with what Greg's doing right now, but I respect what he's doing. He's handing out a lot of money, living up to his promises, trying to with the production quality and stuff. And I appreciate what he's doing. It seems like, Texas has a league going. You have the Knuckles Up guys, you have the Arm Gods, which you're pulling on in it. The same day as Fallen Heroes, actually March 22nd. You have East versus West, you have King of the Table. It's just, those things are separate to me from actual leagues. Like you used to have World Arm Wrestling League, UAL. Those seem to be the 2 leagues. Now you got, what Ian Carnegie's doing up in, what is it called? MAC. Up in Canada, which is his own thing. You got every state seems to have a league, or if they're big enough, California, Texas, Florida. And you look at just what's going on with all those leagues on top of the not international leagues, but the national leagues. And then you have your promoters who do nationals and stuff like USA with Denise and Leonard. You got Simon doing USAF. It's just so many cooks in the kitchen. You got PAL too. I didn't even think about what Hancock's doing with PAL and an international event. And you just look at any given weekend and everybody's promoting so much, you're going to snuff each other out eventually. Because I think everybody comes to the table thinking, oh, $30, $40 an entry, I can make a killing on this event. And, you do your charity event. You have been around tournaments. It's just there's not a lot of profit margin in these tournaments. You got to have the money to back it up to begin with. And then you got to have the ability to run an event. You got to coordinate everything. It's so much work. It's not worth it if you're doing it to try and make money. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor for a lot of these people. But the game's changed too with these pay-per-views, man. It's not entry based now, it's viewer based. So you get these knuckle up guys, but it's also changed the way that promoters like me can do things. It's like I can't get, I used to be able to get Corey West, big name guys to come, which I still could get Corey. Just those are past relationships, and Corey was going to come to Fallen Heroes. It's just I couldn't find him a match because he's too strong. And
it's not your fault, by the way. So it's just
No, I had some ideas. The only guy around here that would, we had 2 guys. Don Underwood always would pull whoever, so he was willing to. But I did, I want Don to keep working towards getting stronger because he's getting stronger all the time. He'll be the first person to tell you that, of course. And Wallace Dilly, and same thing. They're just not at Corey's level. But that's not that's my way of saying it's hard to compete because now these guys are getting money to do these matches where I can't give someone $2,000, $1,000, $500. My expense budget is essentially, hey, I'll get you here. That way you're not spending money to get here, and let's have a good time when you're here. And that just doesn't work like it used to.
it's almost like working at a job and taking a pay cut. It kind of relates to that. Once a person makes that much money, it's like going, I don't want to take anything less. That's how I see it. It's unfortunate because hell, when I got into the sport, late 2010, it was more of, hey, first place was $300, but the talent pool is so deep because, as you say, there was not as many tournaments out there were then. So you had those big, moments, and now it's like the attitude is different because then it was like, all right, who's in my class? Crap. Okay, I can get a win on one of y'all. I know I can.
Yeah.
At some point, you may think that it's a stacked class, which it is, and you may think, crap, I know who the top 4 guys is, so to speak. But at the same time, you got to realize, oh, those guys are going to pull each other also.
Yeah.
So, you probably could sneak in a win or something like that. So, I mean, it all depends on how you look at it. But at the same time, like you said, once you, get a bite of that apple from UAL back in the day or WAL or now the bigger organizations, once you get a bite of that apple and they're paying, a good chunk of change, it's kind of hard to go back and go, oh, well, over here I make this much. If I come to your event, I don't make as much. So I don't know. Hindsight's always 2020.
It is, and it's crazy. If you want an example, whenever I first started, Gary Roberts and Don Fritchie put on an event called Ruler of the Nation.
I missed those events.
$20,000 got every big name that you could think of to the event. John Brezink was there, Travis Bajent was there, Alan Fisher, Cobra, Rob Vigent Jr., Don Underwood, Nick Zena,
Ron Bath.
I mean, it was a murderer's row, something that if you put on a pay-per-view today in a tournament, you would sell more numbers than you could imagine. And $20,000 got them all here. $1,000 first place, I think, is all it paid. And you do that today, I've given out $1,000 in my event and gotten 10 guys in that class. It's just insane, man, where arm wrestling used to be and where it's at now. And it's a good thing. It's progress. But at the same time, it's spoiling people to where they are not getting the most out of their careers from a tournament standpoint. I don't like super matches as much as tournaments. I think if I had a preference, and I had the money like Greg does, I would be doing what Greg does rather than what like East versus West is doing. The tournament structure gives you more matches, gives you more varied matches. Like, could you imagine if East versus West did a tournament with Levon, Hermes, Michael Todd, Devin, and said, hey, we're giving out $20,000 to first place and then, 15, 10. And rather than giving out $100,000 to everybody, they just said, hey, you guys are invited. We want you here. We'll pay for your expenses. And then here's the prize money pool. And how insane that would be, because Levon can trash anybody in a one-on-one, but let's see how he does whenever he has to go through Michael Todd, Devin, and a bunch of other guys, Hermes, and let's see who ends up on top like John Brezink used to have to do back in the day.
Oh, okay. So I'm glad you brought that up because somebody asked me, hey, Jody, who's your GOAT of all time? I said it'd be Brezink 1A, Devin 1B. And I say that because John made his career through tournaments and Devin made his through super matches. And they both did the opposite, right? It's just back in the day when, super matches weren't as popular, John was just smacking people. He cut to a certain weight class, pull his class, the class above that and above that, dominating everybody. And I guarantee you, if push came to shove and they were like you said, there's a tournament that came out, if I'm Levon, I'd be sweating. Yeah. Because if I get in a tournament on my side of the bracket, let's just say on the one side, you got Morozov and Chafee and those guys, Cataret. And on his side of the bracket, you got Devin and Hermes, and then you got a big ass dude named Vitaly waiting on you. Yeah. You're not as invincible as you are now, in my opinion.
Yeah, because if you can train for what Devin does exclusively and know this guy is built like this, yeah, it's kind of like training for a fight. Where if you look at the old school UFC tournament brackets, different game. It's just like you can fight 3 different styles. You can fight a wrestler, you can fight a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and you can fight a boxer on the same day, where you just you fight somebody who's specialized in grappling, then you can train for that. Where if you have to know who's in the tournament and train for every single style, that may not, I mean, Levon may be unseated in that format. He may not. He may just be so strong he walks through everybody. Could be the case.
Could be.
But we won't know because Levon's never going to compete in a tournament again, probably the way that things are going. And the thing is, the World Arm Wrestling League, before it petered out, did one thing that changed the landscape of arm wrestling, and that was figure out we don't have to give out $100,000 in prize money to get everybody here. We can give out $20,000 and get a arm wrestling card like they were doing at the end on Bleacher Report Live. And I think that's what kind of started the pay-per-view model you see now unintentionally. Was they saw, hey, we don't have to give out $100,000 to get these guys here. We can get exactly who we want for half that, if not, a third of that. So right. I think it's detrimental to arm wrestling because now you see these 20 match amateur cards going on, various places. And that's, to me, not good for amateur arm wrestlers to just train for one person and then avoid tournaments because you have an amateur super match with somebody else at your level. Whenever you can go to a tournament and pull 10 guys at your level and have to learn how to adapt to different circumstances and situations. I see a lot of people argue that super matches should be reserved for high-level pros. I don't agree with that either. I think super matches have their place. I just think super match cards exclusively should be saved for, East versus West and stuff like that, high-level cards. And then amateur super matches, let's do it at a tournament. That way you can pull the tournament afterwards and keep things rolling. I do know that guys have a lot of fun with it. We have some good cards down in Southern Missouri, and I think Oklahoma does some, and Arkansas does some. And the guys get there and they have a lot of fun. It's just I think those take precedence over tournaments for guys who would benefit from getting tournament experience a lot more, and they need to learn how to prioritize both rather than just skip one or the other for super match cards. And it's changed the landscape of arm wrestling. And I don't know if it's better or not. I think it's getting more eyeballs to the sport, which is great. It's just, is it going to be a lasting impact, or is it going to be something where we see the same people on East versus West over and over and over again? And then eventually people are just like, yeah, I don't want to see Levon pull anymore. He's too dominant. Like, that's whenever I hope Ingen can see the writing on the wall, and he loves WAF so much. Maybe he creates his own tournament at that point, and that's how they declare the next champion each time,
I'm going to say this, and I've always said this. I don't know how many people heard me say this or even believe me, but I truly think this. We've all heard rumblings. Oh, WAL's coming back.
Yeah.
If they came back, it would only work under one condition. Back to tournament format.
I think the best way, and this has been my opinion for years, I think the best quality product for the average consumer would be a super match card like East versus West is doing in tournaments with the footage already edited in between matches while they get set up until the point where the match is ready to go. Because the average consumer is not wanting to watch 3 minutes of jockeying for hand grip. They need to have the match ready to go, and then have matches in between where they can show, oh, and this is an up and comer from the last event we ran, whatever. And, it's Justin Bishop versus Alan Fisher, and then in between Vitali versus, whoever he's pulling this week. And right. I think that's the way, because it's just the downtime. You're going to get arm wrestlers who are okay watching it, but even I get bored watching the setup for 90% of the time. And then you get the average consumer who maybe wants to see these up and comers in between, and then you kind of piece together a tournament as like a little in between entertainment in between each match.
I'll do you one better. And this is where I'm gonna get a lot of hate, so be careful. It might start, shooting darts at me and arrows. But those long setups, I will say some of the referees need to take the burden on that because, with all the messing around, the jockeying that the athletes do, okay, rest grip, don't move. We all grew up. You did, I did, everybody in the chat watching. We grew up in this sport where listen to the refs, right? What they say goes. If we're in a rest grip, don't move means just that. And you got people before the start and okay, just hey, and I'm like going, once you let that go, you lost the match. And I understand that, from a pay-per-view standpoint and people watching, they want to see a winner and a loser. I get that. But, when you start allowing people to move in the rest grip when it strictly says don't move, then why are we even having rules? So from that standpoint, I think some of the refs take the burden on that. That's just me, though.
No, I don't disagree. I think a lot of these refs have been given a directive to do things a certain way for entertainment purposes. And I think it's, kind of like the NFL where you have human discretion in there. But for the start of a match, I just never understood, like, why. That's why I love Wall, their setup so much, because it's just like, close your hands, close your thumbs, close your hands, ready to go. It's not jockeying for position the whole time. It's just a rest grip. Like if I had my way, every match would start in a rest grip because it's just, let's see who's stronger. We're not who can get the best position and, manipulate the grip the most in the starting. So.
No, I totally get that. I just thought that because Wall, when they were on ESPN, right, they were tournament-based format. Then when they went to Bleacher Sports, that's when they morphed into the Supermatch format, which was good because at that point it was something new, so to speak. But it was like, oh, this is pretty, badass. But
they couldn't really go back to tournaments after they pulled out at the last minute of the biggest finals in the history of their organization.
Right.
They had to do something to reinvent themselves, which I think, like I said, unintentionally changed the landscape of arm wrestling, which, that's where we're at today, which is pretty incredible with East versus West. They're spending so much money. They have to be making a ton of money too. So that's pretty awesome.
Right. And the thing is, though, is that, and I really feel bad because those times I qualified to go to Las Vegas for those Wall events and I couldn't go because of work and other obligations. I'm just like, man, it would have been nice to kind of, see what was that like, especially when they had the regionals and that those were fun, and it's a shame that they can't come back. And I always say, if they do come back, do it this way, because then it's like, okay, it's back to the old school and let all the elite guys do their thing over there. But maybe you don't offer as much money as King of the Table, East versus West, but you offer, a decent amount. People still come.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at East versus West, it's a pretty small pool of pullers that are participating in that. So there's still 99% of the pullers available in the U.S. to make a entertaining product. So there's still a market there. And I think a lot of Knuckles Up is finding that market. I think the problem is you'll get a lot of people who are arm wrestling snobs saying you need international pullers to be involved. I'm like, do we really though? I mean, we're U.S. pullers. Our competition is other U.S. pullers. We don't need, Levon to come over here and remind us that there's monsters over there that can take us out. Like,
right.
We're on our own little island over here. Let's have, a guy from California who's, 6'8" and Derek Smith take on Tim Bresnan from the East Coast because they don't meet up that often. Let's see who wins because that's an interesting matchup and two high-level pullers in the U.S. Like there's a market there still that, people are tapping here and there. It's just I think people are also forgetting that you don't need to have, the best Georgian puller pulling against the U.S. guys because the U.S. guys can't compete past a certain number of very few pullers here.
There's matches here in the States I still want to see. We haven't seen yet. I still want to see Derek Smith versus Chad Shaw for example.
Yeah. Well, let me get back to what we have going on with Fallen Heroes for matches, because I explained, and that's what got us off on this tangent, was why Eli was, qualified. And Bo Olison on the other side, he went to that round robin down in Arizona last year and beat Brett Rockers. I can't remember who else he beat, but he's beaten Brett Rockers, Jordan Sill. He's beaten, everybody that you can think of, and he just doesn't travel enough to get his name out there. And I thought him and Eli would be a great match, just based on the way they pull. They both want to go inside and see who's strongest. So, that's why I kind of came up with that match, because I've known Eli for years. We pulled for the first time in strongest badge, 2019, 2018. And I kept an eye on him since then, and talked to him at Worlds last year when we were both over in Greece, and said, hey, man, this is a charity event for first responders that die in the line of duty. I'd love to have, because he's a state trooper. Right. I'd love to have, or maybe not a state trooper. He's a police officer for one of the cities out in Wisconsin. And I was like, I'd love to have a cop, somebody who represents law enforcement. I used to get Mike out here and have him be the firefighter guy. Yeah. And, he hasn't been out here for a few years, and there's just not a lot of high law enforcement, first responders that pull. And Eli signed up, and he's like, hey, I have my buddies who I train with who need some more exposure, and they need to see how strong they are, because they just pull up here a lot. And, mentioned Steven Martinez de la Coutura and Brian, his brother, and Urbano. So I set Urbano up with Bryce. Like I said earlier, I set Easton up with Steven and Chris Gellings. Set Brian up with Bill Ogsden. And Eli's coming down. I'm trying to think. It's just ended up being a really good card for the guys who know these guys. That's the thing I like to do, is give people a platform. Chance Shaw really got his first big showing at my event. Mm-hmm. Whenever he beat Nick Zena and walked through like the overalls that day. And then Corey West, before he was Corey West, came up here and pulled several times. I had him pull Cody Merritt. Merritt comes out here all the time. Mike Aiello used to come out here all the time. Had Jordan Sill. Not all those guys got their start, but I'm just naming off some guys that I gave the opportunity to pull before they were the guy. And you
gave me an opportunity too, just so you know.
Oh yeah, but everybody knew who you were. I just asked you if you wanted to come out, which always an invitation. You just got to let me know when it fits. I'd ask you to come to Fallen Heroes, but you got bigger fish to fry that day.
Yeah, but to tell you what though, that event was man. That day I went out there and I was like, oh man, this is awesome, because then for me it was about, you hear all the names, but now you get to actually put your arm over the table and compete against them. Now it's like, okay, it's a whole different world now. So
that's the crazy thing about Kansas City and this area, is you have elite level guys at every weight class. 54, we have Dylan Burns, and somebody a lot of guys forgot about, but they can show up at any time. Ethan Fritchie. We have some high level pros in Michael Creason and John Jennings, guys who have perpetually been ranked at 54, 65 class. 76, we have Cody Vanderwoord. We have the number one 76 puller in the country at Austin Tevis.
Yeah,
he's fat now, so he's probably not going to make 76 unless big money comes around. But we have Austin at any weight he pulls at. Really, he's beaten Tim Talmadge whenever he had a torn rotator cuff. Just as an example, Tim's Tim, and he's a great puller, but I'm just highlighting how strong Austin is. And then, myself at 187, you have Bill Ogsden at the 87, 76 range. You came out here, got to pull Ryan Clark and Bo, and we have guys who just show up. That day, Samuel Bowling showed up and just walked through everybody. And you said, I'm sure you remember that. He was just flash pinning everybody. Adam Warzinski was there that day. It's just
that was my first time seeing him in person. I was like, who's this Clark Kent dude just blasting everybody? I was like, wow,
Yeah, that was the event. I gave away $1,000 for the '98 class, and nobody showed up. So, um, no, I mean, like, it's just crazy because then you have. I mean, I'm probably forgetting tons of guys. We had uh, strong guys at every weight class because we got Stephen Green that can show up. We got Bo Olison at the 220 range. Russ Schrader's a few hours away.
Yeah.
Cody Dollar. Um, Cole Casper just showed up last tournament. He plans on coming. So 76 pullers. Any of you out there in the country that want to come get a challenge, we're going to have 3 or 4 ranked 76 pullers at Fallen Heroes. So trying to make that class a highlight. And in heavyweights, we have Wallace Dilly, we have Devin Gagnon, Don Underwood,
Yep.
Ben LeClaire. These are all guys that are currently ranked. It's just, I don't know what it is, what we put in the water here, but we just have a bunch of country strong individuals, I guess, out here. People seem to think that we're flyover country. We got an actual city here with a pretty good football team. So they we seem to just have, I think it's just kind of a generational thing where we had one group of world-class level pullers who then trained more and more, and we just have a certain way of showing people how it's done out here, and it just breeds a lot of strong quality pullers. And anybody who comes here, I see a lot of people post like, oh, we're strong, and they never leave their backyard. Like, well,
Right.
just come up to Kansas City. You're 4, 5, 6 hours away. Make the drive. I'll be accommodating and see if you're strong. It's most guys come up here and realize maybe we're not quite as strong as we thought we are, but we're pretty strong. Some guys come up here and realize, yeah, I am strong. And that I always willing to take my hat off to those guys and say, hey, you are strong, buddy. You came up here, and if you can place at one of our tournaments most of the time, you're a pretty damn strong guy.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, that's when I started really kind of traveling. I still pull a little bit here and there in my area, but when I started venturing out, going to Texas, going to Fallen Heroes, going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Ohio, and all that kind of stuff, because I want to know for myself, what I'm doing at home in Oregon, is it good enough to compete against somebody else somewhere else? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know that for sure. I mean, I don't want to sit there and just be the big fish in a small pond, but yet have this conversation with myself and say, what if? You know what I mean? Just go out there and do it. Just, challenge yourself. I think some people, not all, but there are some people who don't want to do that because they don't want to feel like, no one wants to take a loss. I get that. But at the same time, how good do you want to be in the sport?
Yeah.
If you want to be that, big fish in a small pond, fine. But don't go be barking to the whole world about how good you are, but you don't test yourself. You don't put everything on the line. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And there's, I have a lot of weight classes at my events anymore because I want to give guys plenty of opportunity to pull where they want to pull. And that's one of their complaints is, oh, you don't have my weight class, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I have 54, 70, or 65, 76, 87, 98, 220, 242, and heavies. So you have the opportunity to pull here. And I have amateur, semi-pro, pro, masters, and a women's class. So you can get your matches in here. And if you want your errors ratings, I have every weight class. I give guys opportunities. I even do remote weigh-in hubs. It blows me away because I do a remote weigh-in hub in St. Louis and Springfield and Nebraska and Tulsa. I get maybe 4 or 5 guys from Tulsa, get a ton of guys from Nebraska. So I love that group. I don't think I ever get more than 1 or 2 guys from St. Louis, which is a huge pull of pullers that just don't come this way, and rarely get anybody from St. Louis. Or Springfield, I mean. And I'm just like, man, you guys train so much, but you don't come to the biggest event in your backyard. And I'm not going to be doing this forever, man. I'm running out of steam. I got 2 little kids. They're going to start doing sports and stuff here before long. I'm going to stop running 5 or 6 events every year. You're going to get maybe 1 shot to pull people. And I'm trying to make this sport better as much as I can, but it's just like, it's frustrating whenever you have, 20, 30 guys that just don't show up but train and talk about how they arm wrestle. Like, what do you arm wrestle? Like, you're an MMA fighter going to the gym and training for MMA, but you can't say you're a fighter. All you do is go and train.
So what do you think the issue is, in your opinion?
People are afraid to lose. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, if you know you come up here and you have to face Austin Tevis or Stephen Logston, that's the guy I forgot earlier, Stephen Logston, or me at 87 or Cody Vanderwood at 76, or, you know, if Dylan Burns shows up at 54, he can pull 54, 65, whatever class. Wallace scares a lot of heavyweights away. Bo scares the 220s, 242s away. It's just like, if you know those guys are up here ready to whoop up on you, are you going to drive and spend your whole Saturday whenever you want to, or you can stay home and say, yeah, I'm really good at arm wrestling, and nobody can tell you otherwise because you beat all your friends on the table. So
yeah,
it's that's the only thing I can think of. I mean, I know people are busy, so that could be it too. It's just, to me, if I wasn't running these tournaments and somebody else was, I would be there. You know, if there's a tournament in my backyard, I'm there. And,
right.
you know, for example, there's a tournament next weekend in Springfield, and I would love to go. It's hard for me to dedicate the time to go down there whenever they don't dedicate the time to come up here. So I'm sending a bunch of guys. I have a lot of guys that I'm sending down there. I just can't take the time away from my family because I'm taking so much time away from my family to run these events. I'm a unique situation, but the guys up here that are training with me on a weekly basis that are trying to get stronger, I'm saying, go down there. And I got, you know, a handful of guys that are going down there, and it's because they want to compete. And that's the thing that a lot of guys are missing. They don't want to compete. They just want to say they're good at something.
Have you ever had a situation where you might have, but where you go, hey, let's give this state a shot in the arm. We'll go Team Kansas City, Team St. Louis, meet somewhere in the middle, have it out.
Yeah, we've thought about that. It's hard. I've tried to get St. Louis guys involved in super matches and other things. I've said this several times. We got all the good pullers on the west side of the state. You know, that pissed a lot of some St. Louis guys off.
Do something about it then.
Yeah, that's what I don't know if that's true. You know, I've gone over there. I've never lost a tournament in St. Louis outside of Strongest Badge. So, you know, every time Denise puts on a tournament, I go over there, I win. So I'm just like, I'm not the strongest guy over here even. So, so that's, I say that stuff jokingly because I'm not a cocky guy by nature, but I'm hoping that somebody will hear that and think, well, I'm going to show that guy and I'm going to come over there and whoop some ass. And just hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it until someone proves me wrong.
Because, I mean, I look at it like that would be an awesome thing to have and just alternate, you know, destinations. One year it can be in St. Louis or Kansas City or Springfield or whatever, Columbia, whatever. And, you know,
I'm surprised you know Columbia, but I guess if you follow college, I'm surprised you know Columbia, but I guess if you follow college, you probably know.
Yeah. And just, you know, and do it that way. And that way it's like, okay, well, because if I'm living in St. Louis, and this is just me, if I'm living in St. Louis and I hear somebody on the west side of Missouri talking that noise, I'm thinking, oh, really? Okay. All right. Hey, guys, I'm running up some of the guys. Hey, let's hit this tournament and show them that we know punks.
Well, but, and we do, don't get me wrong, we do get like Bill Schumer comes every time he runs my stream he runs the stream for me every time, you know, comes out here. I let him pull as much as he wants. He pulls like 20 classes every time. And, you know, that's kind of our agreement. And he shows out every time, you know, pulls well in the Masters, pulls the Open, pulls, you know, whatever he wants to pull every time. And he'll bring guys with him here and there. You know, I know Mirzad has come over a few times. I know Pat Hunt's been here before. It's just not consistent, where I'd love to see these guys consistently come over and build those rivalries up. But the problem is, like I said, you know, if a guy who's a good heavyweight puller comes over here and he has to face Don Underwood and Wallace, there's not a lot of motivation to come over here because Wallace just, you know, stomps everybody. And it's that way at every weight class. And I think that's the problem. That's why I had semi-pro, thinking that would solve some of the problems. But the first tournament so far is just amateur guys pulling semi-pro and amateur. And I'm just like, damn, I was hoping that would get some of these guys who are afraid to pull pro up here and pull more. So
because you get the same people in the same class, you know.
Yeah.
But I look at, I'm like, man, it might be your day. You know, yeah, there's Don, there's Wallace, and you're probably looking going, crap, I'm never going to beat those guys. But once again, you got to go, hey, guess what? Those guys got to pull each other also.
Well, like the last tournament, even though I was sick, I pulled 242 in heavies because we only had 2 people in there.
Right.
And I was like, well, I can't. I just put in a random name and pulled and, you know, beat a guy, lost to a guy, lost to both the heavyweights. But I'm like, man, if I was healthy, I feel like I could do something. Where are these heavyweights at, man? They could do it.
Right.
So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the $1 million question, you know.
Hey, Cody, I don't know how much time you got for today, but I wanted to show you the medals before I got off here.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Dude, look at this thing. This is Fallen Heroes, size of my head. You see that?
My word. Yes.
Yeah, dude. That thing is giant. Best medal I've had created. So that's Fallen
Heroes. Let me see if I can zoom in on this.
Yeah.
There we go.
Look at that thing. Size of my head. 6x6. And then Missouri State. This is one of my favorite medals I've had made. It's not as big as it's 4x4, so it's not as big, but I love how the octagon shape. I kind of design these with my thought in mind and send them over and get them designed. And this one I think turned out great. And then Nebraska State. I like this one too. Kind of
nice.
Yeah, I love how Nebraska showed up. This is the problem with Missouri has a unique shape. Nebraska and Kansas don't, so I had to come up with ways. And then even amateurs, man, this is the amateur awards. Look at that. I like
the color on that one.
Yeah, dude, this turned out great. So I'm hoping that draws some people out, because usually I give away those axes. You know, inflation, man. I couldn't justify the expense this year because it's a charity event.
No, I get that, man. I get that. And you know, like last year you came out with the BMF belt. How much those things weigh?
Oh, dude, they were heavy. They were full on replicas. I would say every bit of over 10 pounds.
Can you imagine going through the airport with that thing?
Yeah, I mean, luckily Austin Tevis won them both, so you didn't have to worry about it. But the year that Wierzinski came out here, and every year that Cody Merritt comes out here, they usually win the overalls, which are the giant 4-foot axes. I had to mail it because Wierzinski won that 1-for-1 replica Thor hammer, like the accurate movie Thor hammer, plus the giant axe, plus the smaller axe. And I had to mail those to him at UPS. And, I always tell anybody who comes, if you think you're going to win, bring an extra bag and check it, because that's the only way you're getting home.
Yeah, because if you bring one bag and you go through security, they're going to be like, what is this, sir?
It's a giant actual axe.
Yeah, they ain't going to let you on the plane with that. They're like, I won this tournament. They're going to be like, yeah, whatever, man. Keep it moving. Take this back, So, yeah, you would have to, bring an extra bag or have them mail it to you. So,
yeah, mailing it was almost the same price to mail it compared to checking a bag. So, yeah, it's a unique award. I love to give it out. Hopefully, those prices kind of even out. But these medals, they're cost effective. Not quite as cost effective whenever you get a 6x6 medal, but they look awesome. And I had to do something big for Fallen Heroes, and it's a charity event. It's raises money for an organization called the Surviving Spouse and Family Endowment. I'm on the board of directors for that organization. I joined that this year because I believe in the cause. They give $40,000 to first responders that die in the line of duty in the metropolitan Kansas City area. It's a great cause. I usually give them at least $5,000. Last year we gave $7,500. Most years that comes from my pocket because of expenses. I'm hoping this year we got almost 300 entries last year. I think we were like 250 the year you came. I think we were right at like 299 last year, and I'm hoping this year we can get closer to 350. So spread the word if you can. I know there's a big event in the Northeast, but that's not my target audience anyways. So
Right.
hoping that everybody in the Midwest will show up this year and make it a big event, because got expenses to cover before we can start giving out that money. And I want to give a nice big donation to the SAFE organization like I do every year.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. We're about to wrap this thing up, but I'll go on your page. I'll get all those flyers you got out, because everybody, they're on there. I'll go ahead and repost them, tag you in them, and say, look here, man. Awesome event for an awesome cause. There's some serious talent in the Plains area, so get on out there and let's see what you got.
Yeah, Jody, there's Missouri State, June 7th, I believe. Nebraska State in October. Sorry, I'll show those again. Missouri State, June 7th, October for Nebraska State. World Series of Arm Wrestling qualifier August 9th, I believe. And then the finals, I'm getting custom medals made for those. And the custom medals for the finals are special colored. It's going to be a black medal for the Triple Crown winners. And then the gold, silver, and bronze are going to be for the tournament. So if you can make it, Jody, come on out, man. We'll welcome you with open arms like always.
All right, I got to check my schedule.
I forgot to mention these medals also to the masters and the women. We're always trying. I decided to do the women's class. We got two women, Brittany Hayhurst and Shauna Wagner, who fly in from Wisconsin every event almost, and trying to build that women's class up. We need women to show up here.
If they can come in from Wisconsin, there should be no reason why anybody from St. Louis can't make it, or any Arkansas, Texas, the north part of Texas, Oklahoma, all that kind of stuff,
Everybody's busy. I get it. I just this is a hard sport to train for, and if you got a big tournament in your backyard, proven big tournaments, I think make it a priority. Take the day off work, clear schedule, unless it's something that pops up with a death or something. Right. Show up, because these events ain't going to be here forever. If you've been arm wrestling long enough, you know that they come and go, and I'm going to get sick of promoting one of these days.
Trust me, I know that, because when you said Nebraska and Kansas, you said in Kansas don't have a state title or championship?
Yeah, Nebraska. Nebraska doesn't. Kansas has like a state fair tournament where you go. It's a weird. They call it a Nebraska State because Kansas State because at the Kansas State Fair, but nothing that anybody actually goes to compete at that actually arm wrestles. So I was like, yeah, we need a Kansas State just for the I got a lot of Kansas guys that come and support me. So going to be doing that probably every year going forward, or pass it off to somebody. I'm hoping somebody takes the reins one of these days, because I don't want to promote. I don't need the money, and I don't make money most of the time, and I'm busy, man. I'm busy.
Oh, I get you, man. I get you. Well, my friend, I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose, because I know you got things to do and stuff too. But once again, thanks for coming on the show and letting everybody know about what event you got coming up. And everybody, please check out the Facebook page. It's under Kansas City Arm Wrestling.
Kansas City Arm Wrestling. Go to that. It'll have all the information. Send me a message, Ryan Johnston on FINRA, JOHNSTON, or on FINRA on Facebook. And, you contact me directly if you have any questions about the events, or go to the Kansas City Arm Wrestling page.
There you have it, my friend. Once again, it was a pleasure to have you on the show and stuff, man. And we'll keep in touch and we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks again, Jody.
Take care.